Batman, Iron Man, Spider-Man. These names used to belong almost exclusively to comic book pages, something you'd find in a dusty long box or tucked in the corner of a bookstore. But over the last 25 years, these stories have transcended comic books. They've become blockbuster events, Oscar contenders, and cultural landmarks that define our generation. Comic book movies have grown up in scope, in depth, and in style, evolving into genres of their own: gritty thrillers, political dramas, animated masterpieces, and character-driven epics. What's up, y'all? I'm Royce of the Screen Scene Podcast, and for the next 4 weeks, I'm counting down my top 25 comic book movies of the 21st century. One per weekday, from 25 all the way down to one. And with so many iconic entries since 2001, I wanted to create a definitive countdown, my own personal top 25, if you will. Some picks you will agree with, some will piss you off, and some might surprise you. But by the end of it, you'll understand exactly why each one made the cut. Here's the criteria. 1, it has to be released after the year 2000. 2, it had to be based on a comic book, not just superhero adjacent. And 3, it had to be released theatrically. With one small exception, I'll explain when we get there. If you love comic book films, if you love a good debate, or if you're just here to roast my picks, hit that like, tap subscribe, and drop your guesses in the comments. Let's break this down, let's celebrate the genre, and let's get into the top 25 comic book movies of the 21st century. Starting with number 25. Now, kicking things off with 300, a film that isn't subtle, but definitely unforgettable, Zack Snyder gave us a stylized, hypermythic retelling of the Battle of Thermopylae. Love him or hate him, this movie looked like a comic book come to life. The slow motion, the color grading, the iconic one-liners. It's dramatic and over the top, but also incredibly confident in its own vision. Is it the deepest movie on this list? Absolutely not. But 300 left this mark, not just visually, but in how studios started treating comic book adaptations after it. And for that reason, it earns a spot at number 25. Number 24, Zack Snyder's Justice League. All right, I know what some of you are thinking. Didn't you say that only theatrically released films are allowed on this list? Yeah, I did. But I'm making one exception. Zack Snyder's Justice League wasn't just a streaming release. It was a creative resurrection, if you will. Snyder originally stepped away from the 2017 Justice League after a heartbreaking family tragedy, and the studio brought in Joss Whedon, director of The Avengers, to finish the film.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
What we got in theaters wasn't just different, it was borderline unrecognizable. If you ask me, it was a Marvel psyop. We all remember the mustache gate, that horrifying rubber lip version of Superman. It became a meme for how not to handle a superhero icon. Then came the fan movement, the campaigns, the hashtag. And in 2021, we finally saw the original version. A 4-hour epic that felt cohesive, emotional, and true to the characters. It's not perfect, it's long, like really long, and that's why it's not higher on the list. But it's far superior to Whedon's version in almost every way. The tone is darker, but more focused. The characters have actual arcs, and for once, Cyborg felt like the heart of the story, not an afterthought. And yes, again, there's a lot of slow motion, but you know what? This movie meant something. It was a personal project, a passion piece, and as bloated as it sometimes felt, it delivered the kind of big, mythic DC energy that fans had been craving. And for that reason, and that reason alone, I'm making an exception. Zack Snyder's Justice League lands at number 24 on my list. I told you this was gonna be controversial. All right, all right. I can hear the typing. I can hear the typing. Anyway, let's move on. Number 23. Before Inception, before The Prestige, before Interstellar, Christopher Nolan gave us Batman Begins, the movie that redefined what a superhero reboot could be. At that time, no one had ever seen a superhero movie quite like this. It was grounded, it was psychological, it felt more like a crime thriller than a comic book movie, and it worked. Nolan didn't just give us another Batman story. He built a world that felt real, gritty, and lived in. Gotham wasn't a neon fantasy or a gothic cartoon. It was a city you believed could exist. And Christian Bale's performance, this was the first time we saw Bruce Wayne as broken, as paranoid, as a man who wasn't born a hero, but became one through trauma and obsession. Bale brought a physicality and focus to the role that felt dangerous. You believe this guy could go toe-to-toe with criminals and corrupt billionaires alike. And this Batman wasn't just scary, he was strategic, purposeful, calculated. The training scenes with Ra's al Ghul, the League of Shadows arc, and the deep dive into fear as a weapon, all of that gave this movie weight. And man, we've got to shout out Hans Zimmer's score. It's raw, swelling, and doesn't rely on a traditional superhero theme, but instead leans into mood and emotion. Batman Begins doesn't always get the same height as Dark Knight, but let's be real. Without this film, there is no Dark Knight. This was the blueprint. This was the shift. And for that reason, Batman Begins lands at 23 on my list. Watchmen. Now let's be real. This movie isn't for everybody. It's slow, it's heavy, it's morally gray, and it doesn't hand you a happy ending. But if you give it a chance, it's one of the boldest comic book movies ever made. Directed by Zack Snyder, Watchmen asks a different question. What if superheroes weren't saviors? What if they were broken, corrupt, violent, and deeply human? We've seen other takes on that idea since, The Boys, Invincible, etc. But Watchmen was ahead of its time. This was The Boys before The Boys. It's gritty, dark, and unapologetically cynical. And visually, it's beautiful. Snyder's style, love it or hate it, created some of the most striking frames we've ever seen in this genre. It looked like a comic book panel. Yes, the slow-mo is everywhere, but honestly, it works for this world. It gives everything a larger-than-life mythic quality that fits the tone. The cast was solid across the board, but Rorschach?
None of you seem to understand. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me.
Jackie Earle Haley gave us a version of the character so raw and intense, he made every scene feel dangerous. I'll say this though. Don't watch the extended cut. It drags. It breaks the pacing. Stick to the theatrical, trust me. The ending might not match the graphic novel exactly, but the message is still there. Can peace be forged through fear? Is truth always the right path? Watchmen isn't trying to entertain the way most superhero movies do. It's trying to make you feel uncomfortable. And in that, it succeeds. For its bold storytelling, its stunning visuals, and its legacy as a true deconstruction of the genre, Watchmen lands at number 22 on my list. All right, let's start with the obvious. This was peak cultural science fiction cinema. I still remember being in the theater, folks showing up in full African attire, dashikis, prints, head wraps, all of it, all right? It meant something. Black Panther wasn't just another Marvel movie. It was an event, a statement, a celebration. Ryan Coogler delivered something fresh and powerful. He created a world in Wakanda that felt rich, futuristic, grounded in African tradition, and full of pride. And then you had Killmonger, played by Michael B. Jordan, easily one of Marvel's best villains. He wasn't evil for the sake of it. He was angry, hurt, and speaking on very real pain. You understood where he was coming from. That made him dangerous and memorable. And we can't talk about this movie without mentioning the soundtrack. Kendrick Lamar created one of the coldest Marvel soundtracks of all time. All the Stars featuring SZA, that song still hits. It's a classic. The score and the music elevated the emotional weight of the film and helped Black Panther stand out sonically just as much as it did visually. As a Marvel fan, this one hit different. It was bold, it was smart, and it was important. Rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman, a king on and off the screen. Black Panther was one of my favorite Marvel movies ever, and it landed at number 21 on this list. Major props to Ryan Coogler for giving us something unforgettable. Number 20. You can't have a list like this and not include Iron Man. But let's not rewrite history. Back in 2008, nobody thought this was going to work. Marvel was taking a shot on a C-list character and an actor that Hollywood had mostly written off, Robert Downey Jr. He didn't just prove people wrong, he defined Tony Stark in a way that changed the genre. His charm, his flaws, his transformation, it all worked. And that post-credit scene, it launched the cinematic universe. Iron Man wasn't just the first MCU movie, it was the first great MCU movie, and it deserves this spot without question. All right, y'all, so that wraps up part one. Do you agree? Disagree? Let me know which ones you would have placed higher or left off entirely. And don't forget, drop your guess for number 19 in the comments, and I'll pin the first person who gets it right. Now, keep in mind, we're just scratching the surface here. Over the course of this series, we will be diving a little deeper into each of these movies as they get their own spotlight. So if one of your favorites shows up, we'll give it the attention it deserves. New video drops tomorrow. I'll see you then. Like and subscribe. Appreciate it.